All right, I'm back. Okay, so we have made it to slide number 7. And we're to the point where we are talking about sexual characteristics, and it says the primary reproductive organs. Now, towards the end of the last discussion, I was talking about the gametes. I don't think I used that term. But I'd said the egg, the oocyte, the ovum, and the sperm cell, these are the gametes, and these are the sex cells, and the term for them is gamete. Now, the organ that produces gametes is considered to be the primary sex organ. And so in a male, that would be the testes, right? They produce the sperm cells. And in a female, the oocyte or the ovum is produced by the ovary. So the gonads are, that's the technical term for the primary sex organs. So on slide number 7, that's basically what it says. Slide number 8, we are talking about, so if we talk about males and females, there's a lot more differences, right? I mean, it's not just she has ovaries and I have testes. It's not that. There's a whole lot of other stuff that is different. And so these are secondary sexual structures and characteristics. Men have to shave. Most women don't. So men have more facial hair. Women have breast. Males have secondary sexual structures that are involved with internal fertilization, the penis, right? And then the other stuff that is responsible for delivering the sperm cells to the female. And then in the female, they have structures, the oviducts and the uterus, which are sites of fertilization and where the fertilized egg will implant. These are all secondary reproductive structures. The primary reproductive organs are the ovaries and the testes. So some differences, some secondary features would be men have more muscle mass. So if we take on average, men are stronger. Now, why is that? It's why athletes don't inject themselves with estrogen, because estrogen doesn't cause you to produce more muscle mass. Testosterone does. So the estrogen is the female sex hormone, and the male sex hormone is testosterone. So when we hear about athletes abusing steroids, they're injecting themselves with testosterone. Estrogen is a steroid also, but it wouldn't help them, right? Because it has a feminizing effect, whereas testosterone has a masculinizing effect. And for athletics, that gives it an advantage. So some of the secondary features that result from the hormones that are produced by the primary sex organs, the ovaries or the testes. The ovaries produce estrogen. The testes produce testosterone. Some of the changes, are obvious to everyone that, all humans know that, they say, oh, that's a guy, or there's a girl over there, right? You look at them and you can see these secondary sexual characteristics. Breast development, body hair, increased muscle mass. So I've kind of mixed the two together, male and female, but you know the difference. So that's, so we have these differences in the sexes. I'm not like a peacock, but you can tell I'm a guy. and someone else is a girl, right? All right, so we had said the primary, so I'm jumping ahead now to, I guess, slide 10. It's slide 9. Or I'm sorry, what is it? 8. Yeah, slide 9 just says male reproductive structures. So no reason to talk about it. So slide 10, though, is talking about the testes. And we had said, and these are the primary sex organs that are found in the scrotum, right? And they produce the sex cells. So its primary function is to produce the sex cells, the sperm cells, and also to secrete testosterone. Now, you might wonder why they're on the outside. And I'm going to preface this by telling you a little bit about development. So we'll talk about that on Thursday, but it makes sense to mention a little bit about it now. It ends up after a baby, after fertilization, 7 weeks after fertilization. That's not long, right? So about 7 weeks after fertilization, the baby, if it's a boy, starts to secrete testosterone. And what happens is what would have become an ovary that's up in the abdomen, under the influence of the testosterone, moves down through a special canal, the inguinal canal, down into a scrotum to a position outside of the body. And the reason for that is that the sperm cells require a lower temperature, a temperature lower than body temperature, for them to develop properly. So that's why the testes are positioned outside of the body. And just to get back to something that I mentioned in the previous discussion, I had said that oftentimes there are problems in conceiving, right? And I said about 40% of the time it's the woman, and 40% of the time it's the guy, and then 20% of the time, who knows who is responsible. Well, one of the things that a guy can do if you're having trouble conceiving is change your underwear, right? So, you know, guys have basically 2 kinds of underwear. You can have the briefs that kind of hold everything up close, or you have the kind that are like a pair of shorts. They're boxers, and they allow the testes to be a little bit further away from the body, and sometimes that is what is responsible for producing the difficulties in conceiving, in having babies. All right, so moving on to slide number 11. We have a color glossy picture. No, it's not color, but we have a picture, a cross-section through a testy. And there's a whole lot of stuff in there, right? It's not, you know, just a spherical structure. It has things in there. And so when you look at it, there are some structures that are labeled on there. There's the seminiferous tubules. And then we got your epididymis, and then we have your vas deferens. So, and I might add that in between, the spaces between the seminiferous tubules, that region is called, the cells in that region, they're called interstitial cells. And I mention them for a reason, because they're going to be doing different things. So when we talk about the seminiferous tubules, we had said, what are the functions of the testy? To produce sperm cells or to produce testosterone. So the seminiferous tubules, it's a system of tubules that if you look really close, you can see it's connected to the epididymis and also to the vas deferens. Well, this is where the sperm cells are produced, in the seminiferous tubules. So fast forward to the next slide, and you can see we have a cross-section of the seminiferous tubules. And we've got some cells in there, and oh, you can see the sperm cells in there. And so what you're looking at is a curve in the tube, and you see some sperm cells kind of over here, and then you're over next to the wall of the tube. And you see something called a Sertoli cell. Now, what do you know about sperm cells? Probably not a whole lot, but they consist of a head that's just a nucleus. It's essentially nothing but a nucleus. And then you got this mid piece and a tail. So if you think about a regular cell, there's a whole lot of stuff that's missing from a sperm cell. All the stuff that's necessary for survival, for living, for taking care of yourself. So you have this Sertoli cell. Its job is the care and feeding of the sperm cells. Yeah, it's providing nutrients and that kind of thing to the sperm cell because they're so highly modified. Now, what are they modified for? Swimming. They're modified for swimming. They have to make it to the egg, right? So we have the Sertoli cells that are there helping the sperm cells as they are forming, because we have a diagram on there and you can see bigger cells. It says sperm producing cells, and you can see that if you sort of follow them to the left, ultimately to the sperm cell, you see that they're kind of losing cytoplasm. And so in this process, they lose the ability to take care of themselves. And that's where this Sertoli cell comes in. Outside, just outside of that tube, so we have this curve of the tube, and then we see some cells on the outside. Those are those interstitial cells. And what did we say? We said that the two functions of the testes were to produce sperm cells and testosterone. What do you think those interstitial cells do? They produce testosterone. So now you know. Now you know. All right, so let me see. I'm taking a quick look on the next page. All right, so I better stop right here because we've gone for over 12 minutes. So I'll be right back.